Hello everyone, doing something a little bit different today. I am playing a couple of games that I originally found on, I think, Newgrounds, and I'm playing them here on addictinggames.com. And the first of those games is one that many of you are probably familiar with, which is Interactive Buddy. As you can see here, it's pretty simple, monochrome room, very basic human shape, and you get money, as seen in the corner there, by interacting with him, sort of like a pet simulator game, and here I'm just tickling him by giving him a little click. He seems to really enjoy it. And right now I'm just doing this to kind of get my money up, because the entire point of this game is to get money to buy new skins and items to interact with your buddy. And if you saw any of the items there, and if you don't know anything about this game, you know that this game is particularly rewarding for violent interactions with your buddy. And certainly one of the easiest and most fun and accessible ways to beat up your buddy at the beginning of the game is with the fist. Yeah, he's really not liking it now. He's running away. You always can just give him a good old punch to the noggin. That'll pretty much do it for you. Knocks him out. He doesn't put up much of a fight. So yeah, this game, has a couple of pretty mostly uninteresting items to start you off with. You can play catch with him with these baseballs, and he'll try to catch them, but if you throw them a little bit too hard, they can do that. And then you can just rain a bunch of them down on his head, and he'll just never be safe. You mouse over them to get rid of them. Yeah, so the main thrust of this really is to buy new stuff. Very loud purchasing noise here. There's all kinds of stuff. I don't show off all of the items in this video. If people are really interested, I guess maybe I can. You pretty much just have to grind for money for a few minutes to get all of them, and I just figured, you already have a good little bit of footage of me playing this game. You probably don't need any more. This is one of the easiest way to create chaos in this game, is with the fireballs. The Molotov Cocktails are pretty good for it as well, because I actually didn't think to show them off in this one, because I thought, well, they do the same exact thing as the fireballs, they just set you on fire. But the Molotov Cocktails are different in that when they explode, much like a real Molotov cocktail, they have a little, like, poof, a cloud of flame that can engulf someone even if you don't hit them directly. And yeah, you can use this nozzle hose to spray them with water, gets rid of the fire, and I don't know, I guess he likes being forcibly sprayed with a fire hose. Except I think there is an actual fire hose in this game that, like, literally sends him flying all around the map. Yeah, I don't know, maybe now that I'm thinking about it, maybe I will have to make a sequel to this video and show off some more of the items in this game, because they are pretty entertaining, but it's definitely one of those games that is more fun to play by yourself. And yeah, if you feel bad about, as I would sometimes do as a kid when I played this game, if you feel kind of bad about beating up on just a poor little defenseless, pudgy, gray ball boy, you can buy new skins. There's all kinds of ones, but the classic and the one that I always would love to choose as a kid is good old George W. Very topical. I was going to say earlier, this game was apparently first put on Newgrounds in 2005, so really at the height of, like, that sort of the Newgrounds, me being on Newgrounds era. And yeah, I thought Bush deserved something a little bit harsher than baseballs. I thought I would do bowling balls. But don't you worry, the absolute worst for Bush is still yet to come. And yes, I do keep his skin as the skin for the rest of it. And I got a couple in there for a second. It's fun when they're laying down like that, and Sometimes you can get a ball under their foot and it props up the lower half of them, and you can just really nail them in the dick with a ball. It's really exciting. Couple grenades. He'll, that's a really, really fucking good line there. That I don't like war is really good too. All of the Bush isms in this are fantastic. The only other one that I really got any enjoyment out of as a child when I played this game was the Napoleon Dynamite skin. Again, incredibly topical for when it came out. Which actually has audio clips from the movie, which is fun. Thought a medieval flail might be an interesting way to go. I don't really fuck with the guns too much, but I decided to give a few of them a go in this video. But yeah, this is what I would do. I have a long history of like flash games and addicting games, and I don't know if Miniclip is still a thing, but that used to be like my shit. Board.com used to have a bunch of really cool games. And then, of course, there were games on, like, the Nickelodeon website, the Disney Channel website that I played as a kid, all that stuff. And I would like to make more videos of those sorts of games, just little short videos showing off little silly, games made by just people. I mean, I'm sure some of them were made by, like, developers or whatever, like actual established game things. But, my favorites were the ones with these very simple gameplay premises, and it was a very cathartic game to play as a young boy, just, figuring out my masculinity and my tendencies toward aggression as a young boy. It was really nice to just be able to senselessly just beat up and fuck with a little dude, and I gotta say, it's still just as satisfying today. I mean, I think there's a reason that games like GTA, where a lot of the appeal just comes out of wrecking people's shit and just fucking things up and hurting completely lifeless avatars of people with joy. Is there a fucked up psychology to it? Absolutely. But is it really fun to do what I'm doing now and rain down missiles on an avatar of George W. Bush, just like he did on the real bodies of Iraqi civilians? Also, yes. And no, I'm not saying that all of that shaky psychology is, defended by the fact that it's a skin of George Bush. Obviously, you're not running over a bunch of George Bushes in Grand Theft Auto or anything. It does speak to the fact that I think human beings all need something a little like this, where no one's really getting hurt, and you're just having a good time. And I'm sure that there's something you could say to make me doubt what I just said, but I don't care. So yeah, I eventually got tired of the missiles, and kabam. Crazy how no one thought to do that back in the day. But yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, this doesn't have to just be about Iraq. Of course, that's probably what was on people's minds when this game came out. But also, George Bush has been, still, he came out of, this is more important, the babies. Yes, you can drown your buddy in babies if you want to. They have very scary faces. And yeah, George has lost all hope. And I would be reacting similarly. Now here's where this got a little bit out of hand. Because, see, I thought it would be funny to have not only George Bush burning, but have a bunch of just flaming evil babies surrounding him. And unfortunately, what I found was I wanted to do something else. I was like, okay, I've had my fun. I'm gonna put out the babies and put out George and, do something else. I tried to mouse over the babies to get rid of them. It wasn't working. And I found that every time that one of the babies touched Bush, or if Bush touched one of the babies, they would just reignite forever. And there were too many babies, and Bush wouldn't fucking stop running around. It was just futile, and it was an endless cycle, and so I decided to just, end things in a peaceful way. So, moving on from that game, again, I'd like to do more Interactive Buddies sometime, but I have another game to show you, and that is this. As you can see here, just gotta pull this guy out. Here's George Bush again. This is kind of the theme for this video, I suppose. This is another game in which the appeal is, misery upon a human avatar, and in this case, again, of George Bush. This is called Bush on the Rocks, also a classic Addicting Games game. I could not find out when it was published or who made it, but it is very funny, especially when he gets stuck in the rocks like this. And I think the only thing that puts Interactive Buddy above it is that this isn't quite as interactive. You don't have as much of a say over what actually happens to George here. He will mostly just fall almost forever unimpeded. Eventually he'll hit a snag and he'll stop, and you'll have to, squish him through a rock or something. And of course you can always flip him around or, make his head do something weird. That was something I loved to do as a child. You can mostly just let him fall here. It might as well be a screensaver. But I imagine that this came out, during the first or end of the first or into the beginning of the second term of GWB. And I guess there was just a lot of, look at that, the way the head knocks, but like that was so good. Comedy gold, this game, really. I think it could use some cartoony sound effects, maybe, when he hit, like, some or whatever, that might be fun. But I think there was a lot of demand. I remember seeing a lot of Newgrounds and Addicted Games at the time, that were just about, like, fucking with George Bush or playing as George Bush in some sort of, like, silly role. Understandably, of course, his approval rating was quite low at that point. The tax cuts that just happened, the Iraq War was underway, things weren't looking great. Makes you wonder, I don't know, I guess I don't hang out on too many sites like Addicting Games or Newgrounds now, and I don't think they're quite as active as they once were. But I don't know. I don't see quite as many of these types of games for Donald Trump. And oh yeah, I'm trying to make him suck his dick here. That was a favorite pastime of mine as a kid. But I don't see sucking on my own dick. That is, of course. But I don't see too many of those for Donald Trump. I know there's like the assassination one where you can like try to stop his assassination or whatever, but I don't know. None of the ones that I have seen are quite as fun. These ones are so simplistic. There's another one where you're like a presidential shooter and you could be George Bush or John Kerry, and it's like, that was very much of a time. I almost can't imagine that game being made now, but yeah, humping the rocks was another thing I liked to make him do. When I just remember I would go over to my friend's house. This was in like 3rd grade, and we would go on these sites and just find games to play and, introduce each other to these funny games. I think he's the one who showed me this game. And, that's what we would do, just squish him through rocks. What we would do is we would come up with what George was saying as all of this was going on. He would be like, please, no, and then, we'd bash his head into a rock, and he'd be like, ah, and, just shit we'd heard on TV that George Bush said, and it was funny because my parents, I don't know if they were explicitly pro-Bush during this time, but, at least one of them was a Republican, kind of held Bush's water in most cases. But I also grew up in a pretty blue state, and I also, had seen George Bush before, and I was a child, and I wasn't, politically there or like, you know, keeping up with anything, but I knew that it was a popular sentiment that George Bush is an idiot and sucks and that he should die. And I just kind of went with it. I was like, yeah, sure. I mean, probably. And I had great instincts as a kid, I guess, because that's still true. I only strengthened my... Again, this is like very joyful for me because, again, he has not... It's not like he's disappeared from political life. He intervened to make sure that a rapist could be on the Supreme Court as early as a year ago. So yeah, fuck George Bush, and this was Bush on the Rocks, an interactive buddy. Let me know if there's any other games of this type you'd like to see, and hopefully I'll have a few more for you soon. So, I'll catch you guys next time.